This is practice. But so we're today here, IT gigs from Capstone Senior Project at USF, spring 2019. We're going to go over the player script that we created here for a VR headset, and I'm here today with Jyotsna. What's up, Jyotsna?
Hey Alvaro, how's it going?
Just building some virtual world that is gonna make everyone happy.
Cool, cool.
So Jyotsna, I wanna tell everyone how was it that we started creating this script? Like, what was the first step to create the script?
Um, so basically, as we were working on this project, um, we were struggling a bit on finding how to get the script to work and how to get the functionality work within the project. And so as we were researching, we came across Unity. We came across a Unity course in Udemy, um, which gave us, very good basic foundations and helped us learn and apply the scripts to our objects within our project.
But have you seen the
So we can
screen
have the
here?
player.
Yeah, have you seen the screen here? Yeah, the player is it can move around. It can go forward. It can go backwards. Seeing the player
Yeah.
jumps. You have eyesight.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
it's pretty good result. So let's. Do you mind if we take a look at what's be under the hood?
Yeah. Sure. Let's take a look at the code behind the scenes code.
Okay, that's fine. So, um, let's take a look at something first. Before we look at the script, let's take a look at this on the right, the inspector of the object. So we have the object that's our player. So in the player, we
Mhm.
can find you see that the script, right? So was added to the component. So we can see that we're using the player script. So let's take a look now. What do you say? So we have here Visual Studio because that's the default on the Windows machines when you have Unity. I think
Yes.
it's pretty good. I like it. I like it. It has
Mhm.
what they call IntelliSense, so I think that helps the junior developer, to be more efficient and less mistaken prone on the code because I'm one of those. It's hard for me to remember a lot of the keywords, and that happens to me. So this does help me a lot. But let's see what's in here.
Definitely.
Yeah. So we have we have the public class. We call it player, right?
Mhm.
That's a script that we gave to the
Created.
object, right? Yeah. And so
Mhm.
we actually can see here. So what are this over here?
So those are the variables.
Okay. I was noticing that. So this public, right? So the
Mhm.
public here, I think that is gonna allow us to have access. So like you see, we have the different variables that we have in the script:
Yes.
speed, jumping force,
Yes.
rotating speed.
Mhm.
So as we can see that when we want the player to be able to access some of the parameters and actually change them in real time, you
Mhm.
can also even like
Mhm.
drag here the bar all the way until the display section. So that's a cool feature, and you can
That's
change that.
cool.
Yeah, you can change that in game mode as well. So if you want to jump higher, if you want to have faster speed, then you can do that in real life. Sorry, real time because we're in the virtual world. What am I saying?
Mhm.
So they're public, and we go back and so a little bit about this void and update start. So void start is gonna whatever is implemented here, whatever methods are called, whatever you have defined there is gonna be there at the beginning of the scene, at the beginning of your play mode, because
Mhm.
from the start.
Yes.
Then we have this void update method, and the void update method, what it does is that every frame per second, so this will vary depending on the machine's processing power, but we have the processing speed in the game is measured by frames per second. So whenever there's a new frame, then
Uh huh.
something happens. Okay,
Okay.
so
Okay.
I would say it could be like 20 frames per second, So whatever statement is here, of course, that is if we reach the statement, then it will happen. So let's
Okay.
take a look. Okay, so update. So if input. So what is the input here? What is the input doing?
So the input is it's taking in what like the key that we use on the keyboard, so that would be the input.
The input, yeah.
You know,
Okay.
to move for the movement.
Okay, yeah, because we gotta record somehow the input of the whoever the user is. This,
Mm-hmm.
of course, we eventually implemented as a virtual reality trigger or input, right? Because there's different type of input, right? It could be in this case instead of for the keyboard, it could be a voice input, it could be a haptic input, right? It could be a
Yes.
visual input. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but
So any input from the user.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And now, so something very important that we didn't mention. So we Unity Engine here on the very top. It's very important to have it because it's gonna
Mm-hmm.
make us it's gonna give us the advantage to access whatever components we have on Unity. So we can
In
access
the
those.
Unity.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So the
So
components
so
are
you're importing the Unity package into the Visual Studio, so that whichever so while building this code, right, while building this object, it's going to be compatible with the Unity engine.
exactly and more than compatible. So you can see in the inspector that they call this components, right? So each object, every object in
Mm-hmm.
the virtual world has
Yes.
components, right? I mean,
Yes.
some will have less than others, but they always would have any type of or some sort of components. Now, what we
Mm-hmm.
do by using Unity on the C sharp scripts is that we, through the code, can access any or every of the components for every object. For example, transform
Yes.
is one of the components, so
Mm-hmm.
we could access any of the parameters that we have, that any of the
Mm-hmm.
parameters from this component. So we need to do that, right? We need to do that if we want to be able to transform it. Of course, there's some that we haven't get into detail, but anyways, just a little bit on how Unity you can access Unity components. And so get key is simply asking for that input. Um, and you see a different one. So we have either get key or get key down. So we use get key down because this is what we'll inspect eventually in a moment. This is the method for the jumping, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and,
Yes.
and so we don't want the player to be able to be like a floppy bird, like an angry bird, if he's able to press um, the space button many times. So that's what we gotta have a different. We gotta wait until the key's down to allow
Uh-huh.
the next input.
Okay.
So let's take a look.
Got it.
They're pretty much the same, so we can inspect one and just move on to the next one. So the
Okay.
method, yeah, method transform, rotate around. So transform, like we see here, takes to Unity. We can now access the transform, and there's different things that we have there, right? We have a scale, we have a rotation, we have position, and so we can access all of
Yes.
those. And what do we need to access those? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So uh are you asking what exactly how to access?
No. So what is the need that we have? We as a developer, what is the need for us to access these components? For example, the transform, because we that's how we move around, right? So let me show you something
Mm-hmm.
so we can understand here. You see,
So because we need to get the object that we have created to move around,
exactly,
to transform into, whatever function we want it to do.
exactly, yeah. So a little example here, we're moving around here in design mode, right? So this object, which is in the inspector right now, is called Mega Man. That's what it is blue,
Mm-hmm.
and so is the position, right? So if we access that, we see that the C axis is moving, it's changing, right? If we move here, we see that the position. So when we move the player, the position they change on the transform. So
Yes.
being able to access the transform is going to allow us to make to being able to make the player move. So
Mhm.
that's why we need to have access. And then again, having unity, we can access the rotate, we can access the position, and we also have this. It's a shortcut. A vector, simply what it is doing right now is accessing the three coordinates um, at once in one time, right? So when you capture all of them, then you don't have to individually change the values on them to have a desired direction,
Yeah.
so we capture all of the vectors, and then that's gonna allow us to. Oh, we lost there a little bit the connection. It's gonna be back in a second. Okay, we're up again. No worries. I just forgot to pay the bill.
Okay. Cool.
Um, no, back to it. So the vector then allow us to access all the points, and using this predefined method up, then it's gonna take us, towards that direction, right? In this case, because it's the right,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
because of the position, then we're gonna be able to go right. Then the same with the left. We're accessing. Hold on. Oh, we have lost you. Alrighty.
I'm here.
All
I'm
right.
back.
Back. Okay. So we're using here the rotating speed, and so to right, we're just gonna use the rotating
Mhm.
speed, and then the opposite
And
is
that
to.
is for the object to be rotating around.
Yeah, so this exactly. So what it does is we're accessing the. Oh, I think we lost you again, but that's fine. So we're accessing the rotation file. So we access this up one because we're gonna give it movement as a Mario Kart.
Mm.
You see that? So we're accessing this. So we're saying up, and then the speed. So one is positive, so it's gonna either take us to the right, positive, positive, or the other one which is negative, is always gonna go
Mhm.
to the opposite side, and then that's how we're gonna be able to move. The player is gonna go, to the direction. Well, this one is again, it's only rotation of the axis. Okay, so the rotation we just saw, and then so
Okay.
up. This is gonna
Okay.
what it's gonna do is gonna take us forward, and so you see something different here. So what you see here is that we're actually adding, right?
Mhm.
So because we want to maintain the result, which is the change on the position of the transform. So
Yes.
up in this case will be
Mhm.
forward. So we'll do the rotation, then we move forward, and we can go that direction, and then we have the speed in this case. This is gonna define how fast we move, and we can change that
Mhm.
also. Then we have down is just gonna be the opposite. Is gonna take us backwards. And I think you were asking about the delta time, didn't you, Jyotsna? What is the delta time? Didn't you ask that?
I have a quick question actually.
What?
I was just about to ask you regarding what is the delta time. The time dot delta time.
This is a trick that we learned from Udemy. I forgot the name of the instructor, but it's pretty good. Um, so he's a gamer, and he's got 15 years of experience in the gaming industry, and he was defining how in the game you move as a matter of frames, right? So you have frames, what you call frames per seconds, and depending on your
Mhm.
machine, you're gonna have differential results on the frames per second. So a more powerful machine with a higher processing power is going to have maybe 60 frames per second, and a less powerful machine, maybe an Apple, just teasing, will
Oh, okay.
have will have like less frames per second, right? So it will be unfair since we're multiplying, and
So
you
it's depending on the operating system.
yes, because remember, what is the update method for? The update method happens every frame.
Okay.
So if you have 60 frames, you have 60 calls of the update method. You see?
Mhm.
So if you have 20 frames per second, you had only
Okay, I get it.
20, so it will be unfair. So the tau delta time is the difference that pass between one frame to the next one. So higher processing power computing have more frames per second, which means less distance between each frame. So the time would be less on the most powerful machine. In the opposite case, the less powerful machine with less frames per second will have a longer time of period that will pass from one frame to the other, and that means the multiplication is going to be a higher number, which is going to compensate and make sure that no matter what machine you're using, it's always going to have the same, speed for the update method. So you will not have unfair advantage over any other player. That's the reason for the other time,
Okay.
and I think that was a pretty cool lesson there. Now the jump was actually a little bit tough because we did have to access this rigid body. So rigid body, this is another component. Let me show you. So real component actually is important when we want to make sure that we apply real physics to the different objects in the virtual world. So we access this, and we gotta make sure that the rigid body, which is the player in this case, is hitting the floor before we can make it jump again. Okay, so when it's a space, right? So when we have space, the key as input, and the player can jump, which is so that the two need to be true in order for this to happen. Um, then we want the player to jump, but can jump starts a true. So every time we start a player, the player can jump. Now we don't want it to cheat, do like a Flapping Birds and have like Smash Bros, triple jump. We don't want that. So we just want the player to jump like a natural person, right? You
Yeah.
cannot jump twice. You gotta wait. So what we do here is, okay, we have that force. Again, this is public. This is a public parameter, so you can access that from the engine interface. And so once you jump, if that's true, then which starts true, you can do it. You hit the floor and then can jump is false. So then that's when we apply this other method here on collision. So collision, as the name suggests, is when two objects come in contact with each other. And so if, and well, in this case, on collision is looking for a game object with the following name, right? So all of the game objects, they have they have their different names here, right? You can name it. I mean, this is a mess, so my apologies. This is supposed to be collapsed here, but no, there's a different story. Um, oh, anyways, so we call it the whole plane is called, according to the strip, master town plane. So every
Okay.
time there's a collision with an object called that, then can jump becomes true. And well, that's
Jump becomes true.
yeah, that's pretty much it. That's how our code works. And let's see the results again.
That's awesome. So
what
this entire code gets the object in the project to move around, to rotate, giving it perspective and giving it a function.
exactly. And on the next lesson, so we're gonna make the player trigger some other functions like with proximity, right? Like a sensor. So the player can, you see, smash the wall, and it can go crazy sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah, it
So
can go
like
crazy.
more.
I think we better end his misery. Yeah. So yeah, that was the lesson of the day. We're gonna publish one tomorrow as well, and then the day after the final, and we will be seeing you soon